All right, I have a poem here. I thought I was going to be able to work with a friend of mine. She's a brilliant writer, and I had started her biography called She Was Just 17, because a highly successful, brilliant professional woman, and I had become so frustrated with the way that she dealt with a part of her life. I was a friend of her old boyfriend, that I just told her that she should write this, and I would write it if she didn't, because I was sick of her mawkishness. And for a brief point, I was full of hope, because I thought that between us, we could get a literary collaboration that would give her the biography that would be of help to people, because her life has been a struggle. She was born in an Irish orphanage. She was adopted by parents who treated her like a badly placed pet. But then she couldn't go farther with it, and I had to walk away from it too. And I did it with sort of an eviction poem. And this is a poem I wrote to explain the way that I might have felt about my life in Madison in the late 60s and how I looked at it now. And it was different. And I guess I want to walk away from it and say, well, that was then. As a matter of fact, I was going to call someone last night about illustrating a poem that I had written called Carnival Pilgrims. Some of you are familiar about it. But instead, I have a short story I'd rather write that's new, that's inspired by a history course a friend of mine took. So what I did, I took a lot of cultural icons from the 60s. And most people's parents or grandparents, especially if they've been around a university, would know what I refer to in this poem. It's called Bye Bye Big Nurse Ratchet. I said goodbye to Big Nurse as I stepped down and left her to drive the bus. I told her I was misinformed, as I thought she was driving Kinky Wrestler, Kesey's Merry Pranksters, Memories 1968, Nostalgia Blue Bus Tour Express. But instead I found myself aboard C.S. Lewis's Hell Tour bus from the Great Divorce. I demanded and got a refund because I'd already been there and done that 50 years ago when she was just 17. And you'll know what I mean when I say she had about as much compassion in her soul for us as a Wolverine. Yet, and I have a Wolverine graphic here, I have a note from my father's unpublished novel, Comprehend to, say pardon to. And what that really means is, when you understand all, you forgive all. All right, I have one more internal reference. I don't think I talked about this specifically, but it's very important. In the previous paper, I generated on-site a philosophical concept which will be exceedingly useful for the rest of my research. And Professor Paci was kind enough to watch the video and remind me that I had said it, even though it had disappeared from my consciousness. And it has to do with the work I'm doing on what I call phaleologocentric malignant hypermasculinity. And what I had said is a way of replacing this, an alternative to this, would be a feminist meta-ethic and the introduction of something called a calculus of caring. Now this is interesting because this nests with a whole bunch of other Western philosophical concepts, among them Jerry Bentham's utilitarian calculus of hedonism. And hedonism is a calculus of pleasure and pain by which we judge the utility of our action. And a lot of our modernity is expressed in that particular way. But a calculus of caring would attempt to measure, I talked about this before the taping, that which we thought was unmeasurable, but nevertheless needs to be measured in terms of long-term outcomes of various policies, various things, choices we make about what kind of future our children are going to have, this generation of students. You know, that the world is not simply a playground for rich men to do what they please with. And then it's not necessary to destroy and subdue nature for our own purposes. I've got to do a lot of more work on this calculus of caring. And one of the mathematicians I used to work with, Mike Zielinski, is no longer with us. But I've had pretty good luck trying to find some others who have shared this idea. My wife actually works on this a bit in terms of the aesthetics of the environment and how we can express a way of valorizing that. You know, people will say, well, how can you put a value on a sunset? Well, maybe you can't put a value on a sunset, but maybe you can put a value on not having a polluted sunset so horrible you don't want to look at it. And to say that we can't valorize something and then go evaluate it and walk away and do as we wish is sort of a cop-out. You know, people don't want to, they'll call it an economic, they'll call it contingency. And they'll turn the problem over to the ethicist, and the ethicist will say, well, it's all relative anyway. So depending on whatever value system you want, you can do whatever you need to do. Some of us don't think that. Whether or not we're religious, we feel that we're moral, we call moral realists, and we believe that certain values have transcendent action guiding principles, and you just can't walk away with that. I have a story called P37 that I want to talk about next time. It started out as kind of a joke, an ironic joke, and in the process of becoming a joke, it's turning into a very powerful story with characters that I want to write about. And I'm not sure exactly where it came from, because I wasn't planning to do that. And as soon as we get done with this taping, I'll go on to the next thing. So I guess I'm getting close to the end. And I'd certainly like you to send your review books to me. We're going to have a whole new look the next time we do this. If nothing else, I'm going to have a beard trim and a haircut. And I hope I can keep going with the plan I'm going to do. And I've just been really pleased with working with Hannah and Sarita and the crew. And next time we want them on camera, at least just to introduce themselves.